These are the toughest tech companies to interview with, according to this survey conducted by Glassdoor of its members. And this seems about right. As someone that's interviewed with almost every single company on this list and have worked for 3 out of those 11 companies, I can confirm that out of all the interviews that I've had in my 18-year tech career, the ones at these companies have been generally the most difficult. But one thing I noticed is that most of the tough interview questions that I've faced at these companies revolve around the few key leadership concepts and principles. So in this video, I'm going to go over 6 real interview questions that I've received from Amazon, Apple, Meta, Google, Microsoft, and other large tech companies, how to answer them, and what key leadership concept or principles that they were looking to highlight. Welcome back to Daniel's Brew, where I talk personal finance and career development. So diving right in, the first interview question on my list is, describe a time where the data and the results of the project were completely different than your expectations, and how did you react to this? This was an Amazon question for a senior leadership role in Amazon Payments. This one was a hard one for me to answer because typically, as a proficient business leader, you do a lot of due diligence up front to ensure that you get an accurate projection of your initiative's performance. And while the data will never be exactly the way you expect, it shouldn't be too far off from your forecasts, assuming of course that you've had sufficient enough inputs to make an informed prediction. But the underlying thought that they were looking to test with this question was, how do you react when you have an unexpected change in business performance? And what is your mental model for course correction when you need to make it? For this one, I highlighted a past program that I've led that didn't quite meet our financial forecast and made sure to emphasize the concept of failing fast, learning from the situation, and influencing my team and other cross-functional partners to pivot to a new direction. The key to successfully answering this question is to showcase your ability to assess the situation, meaning you can quickly recognize when something is off, adapt to the changes of the results, and lead others into a new direction of strategy. This one was from Meta, an interview I had for their Reality Labs organization. This was a functional question that was searching for whether or not I had the right background and experience in my discipline to determine if I could do the role that they were hiring for proficiently. For these types of questions, I always follow a methodical approach of outlining the different steps required to get to the right outcome. For this particular example, I walked the hiring manager through my approach on building out the business case, deriving the go-to-market plan, and of course, measuring and evaluating the KPIs set at the inception of the program. As long as you provide enough depth and exhibit enough functional expertise in your answer, this interview question should be pretty straightforward. This was a question I got when I was interviewing for a role on Apple's online store team, and it was very fitting because Apple is a company that very much values thought leadership from every level of its organization. And this particular question highlights a very real scenario that you might have where you have a collection of very smart and engaged team members who might have differing perspectives on what drives success. The way I actually answered this question was from the approach of something I learned at Amazon, which is the concept of disagreeing and committing. You see, at Amazon, one of the principles that you get to learn is that it's okay to disagree with a decision made at your leadership level. In fact, the higher up you climb the corporate ladder, it's often a requirement for you to voice your concerns if you have a differing opinion from that of your leaders. This ability and the courage to speak up in these cases is often a touted quality sought after in higher level roles. But the art is in how you provide and address these concerns and how you deal with the response that comes back. In the event that the leader still makes a decision that's different from your perspective, it's important to know how to commit and move forward, even if the situation is not exactly in line with your thinking. I know this is a tough one to learn, but it's one of the best soft skills that you can develop to give yourself longevity in your career. This was another meta question, but the truth is, I've been asked a similar type of question at almost every tech company that I've worked for. A commonality within almost every high-profile business role in tech is that you'll have far more work that lands on your plate than you're physically capable of doing. Therefore, a disciplined practice in prioritization and decision-making will be critical for your success in both your individual contributions and cross-functional team efforts as well. The way I typically answer these types of interview questions is to highlight the prioritization criteria that I have, whether they be financial impact, key growth KPIs, customer lifetime value, or some other functional priority, and show how I would adjudicate between work that comes in that may have competing impacts across the organization. For this one, it would also help if you knew the KPIs or success metrics that were important in your new prospective role and what type of business decisions they have to make against those success metrics on a regular basis. This one I received when I was interviewing for the Google Shopping organization. It's a pretty common question, and it should be a fairly easy one to answer as well. In these types of inquiries, the interviewer is really looking for depth and meaning in what you are looking to drive change in, and perspective on how you reacted to the results of the change to gauge your adaptability and mental fortitude in a challenging scenario. So to answer this question effectively, you gotta pick an example that's comprehensive enough to cover all those things I just mentioned and shows your resilience to meeting opposition head on. And if you can find an example that illuminates the high degree of courage in your stand, perhaps the counterpoint of your challenge initiative was a senior leader to you or a large organization, or some other scenario where it took a great deal of courage to stand up for what you believe in, that's all the better of an answer for this interview question. And lastly, this is an interview question that I received from Microsoft's retail organization for a senior marketing role. Obviously, what this question was aiming to gauge is the ability to drive through an influence model and measure how broad your span of leadership might be. Here, it's important to highlight how you first organized the right stakeholders you needed to bring in for your project, and then how you went about building a strong bond and sense of trust within these partners to align them to the right priorities you have for your initiative. This perhaps is the most important skill that you can learn if you want to be a strong leader in a large corporate organization. When you work for any large tech company, you'll quickly discover that not one person, group, or leader controls all of the aspects you need to drive a large initiative of any kind. And especially as you become more and more senior in your position, you'll start to see that the partnerships that you build and the trust that you have between your colleagues is really the only currency that you have to buy the effort and the work you need to drive your objectives. So when you answer this interview question, make sure you showcase all of the collaboration and trust building tactics and skills you've acquired over the years to clearly demonstrate that you're able to form a cooperative connection across different working groups and lead them in one unified direction. And there you have it. Those are the top 6 real interview questions that I've received in my 18 years in large tech. If you found this video useful, make sure you check out the rest of my career development content down below in the description section. Now, this video in particular walks you through the top 3 tips for leveling up your virtual interview skills, so make sure you check that one out. It can make a huge difference in your future interviews. So with that, I hope this video helps you guys in your interview processes and gets you to land that new prospective job that you've been working towards. Cheers.